So, Kevin, as you took in the Ryan Day news conference this week and also talked to the Buckeye players, was there any particular themes or storylines that hit you?
I think it's just a matter of self-reflection coming out of that first open week, having a week where you're not preparing for somebody. If you're a player, having a sit-down meeting with Ryan Day and or a position coach and going over things that you can do better. And then just with Ryan Day, him doing just a full autopsy of the offense through the first 6 weeks and looking at tendencies and maybe some places that they can break tendencies and whatnot, because let's be honest, the second half of the season is going to be much more complicated than the first half of the season. And that's, still with Maryland and Rutgers on the back end of the schedule, which isn't necessarily, setting the world on fire in terms of the way that either of those teams have been playing. But, they're going to have to be able to do a lot of things in terms of trying to break some of those tendencies and be ready for teams that are going to have them well scouted once you get into week 13 of the season and whatnot, and not really having any turnaround time from hosting Penn State to going up to Michigan.
Kevin, I threw this out to everyone last week. You weren't around, but this is a team that hit the first quarter against FAU and started rolling, and it really hasn't stopped since, both on offense and defense. It's been a team that was supposed to be challenged by Nebraska. That turned into a joke, 38-0 at half. Michigan State was supposed to provide resistance. They did a little bit more than Nebraska, but not a whole lot more. That wasn't much of a game as well. We know what's happening here is that the passing game is almost on par with what it was last year with Dwayne Haskins running the show. Again, we need to see better teams, Penn State and Wisconsin in particular, but the offensive line so much better. J.K. Dobbins is determined. The defense is so much better. The athletes on the defensive line and secondary, despite the struggles last year, were elite. The linebacking core was not, even though all three units struggled at various times, especially the back seven. What would be your biggest difference makers in regards to, we know that the defense has improved considerably. They're in position, they're making the plays, they're not missing tackles, not blowing coverages, all those things. But are there particular players on the defense that you think have really upped their games?
I mean, I think that, I think Damon Arnett is the first one that comes to my mind. Damon Arnett really, he had a foot out the door, was ready to go. We've all heard the story about how he talked to Chris Carter, and Chris Carter said, basically, what are you doing? Where do you think you're going? Because it isn't the league. And, he's played very well. We could see this whole secondary leave after this season. Obviously, Damon Arnett's at the end of his eligibility, but I think he's made himself quite the future just based on the way that he's been playing. I think Pete Werner's playing a lot better, and that's not to say that Pete Werner wasn't playing well in 18, but I think Pete Werner's playing at a much better level than he was, from last year to this year. And I think all the linebackers really just seem to be in much better positions. They're reacting a lot quicker. They're not taking bad angles. And, I hear it time and time again from fans when they're watching 18, just while they're so close to the line of scrimmage. I think that we just see some differences in the way that the scheme is set up. And, I think when you look at the defensive line, it's just a different Chase Young because he's healthy. He's not playing on two bad wheels. We're seeing much more of a consistency to how he played last year at Penn State. When he had 3 sacks, he made that final tackle when Penn State was trying to drive with under a minute left to go or so. He's playing like that week in and week out. And I think that, for a player that already was pretty darn special last year, he truly is the best defensive player in college football this year.